بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Today we will be discussing verses from 189 or 190 till 195. And last time we made really a long introduction to this passage, because it is the topic is very contentious, sensitive, because it talks about situations of conflict and war, fighting, killing, okay? And so how we can really understand this topic in the context of the surah itself, the chapter itself, and also in the context of Qur'an as a whole. And we tried to put or to construct a vision extracted from the verses that talk about this topic through Qur'an. Otherwise, if we start taking verses from here and there out of context, okay, it can be unfortunately exploited and misused. And I don't have to tell you, because we are all witnessing, okay, as we speak, how dangerous it is when things like that are taken sometimes either literally or out of context, and without really paying attention to other verses. Okay, not even talking about the topic, but other important really concepts spread throughout Qur'an. And we said that if you noticed, all the topics that the surah dealt with are really very different, and they may not be sometimes related to each other, because life is one. And however Qur'an is talking about fasting, or talking about Hajj, as we will see later on, or talking about the how you write your will, or what is really the attitude towards murder and capital punishment, and all these things are talked about in the surah. We talked about at the beginning about hypocrisy or Nifaq and other social problems, okay? So they definitely are, because life is one, and this is why Qur'an talks about one issue and then say, why now Qur'an talking about something related to a peaceful situation, and then talks about something as if you are in the battlefield. You see what I mean? Because these things happen, okay, in our life, and we have to be given direction. And this is why we have been emphasizing, and the surah itself from the beginning was emphasizing that this book is a book of guidance. It's a book of meaning. It's a book of direction, okay? And we need that direction. We cannot say, okay, I am self-sufficient, I don't need guidance. This is the worst disease that may afflict, okay, humanity. And from day one, as you recall from the discussions in the previous years, that in the first surah revealed to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Iqra, and then it says, كلا إن الإنسان لا يطغى أن رآه استغنى. So istighna, or this feeling, or this fake feeling of self-sufficiency, and it may, the worst of its manifestation when it comes to guidance, that I am self-sufficient, I don't need, any help or any guidance, okay? But we have seen that human beings are always in need, okay, of a reference that will interpret to them the meaning of their actions. We are always asking, why this happened? Why that happened? Why I am feeling like this? Why something happened in history, and we try we want some interpretation, okay? And so in that context, okay, we will try to understand this very important passage, okay? Because this is the first time, okay, as a group, we are really discussing something that sensitive and that very contentious, okay, in different circles, okay. And so it says, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. So Quran is saying, if you are fought, fight back. Only Quran is saying you are allowed, permitted to fight back, okay, those who are fighting you. Now, وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا. Don't wage war. Don't wage aggression against others. No assault. Okay? So it's very clear that the legitimate, okay, reason to carry weapon against another human being, if you are really protecting yourself, protecting your property, protecting your family, protecting your land, protecting your country, all these, okay, become legitimate reasons, okay, to stand up and now, having said that, okay, we know that in Mecca, the Muhammad ﷺ and his followers were basically persecuted, tortured, punished, hurt, harmed, killed, okay, but they did not wage any war, or they did not do the same thing. No question, because they do not have the means at that time. The situation became different when they moved to Medina, and now, okay, it's not only you have the religion being completed or going in the direction of being completed, the revelation is coming down and everything, but also Muhammad ﷺ was able to come to a consensus with the people to form a state, or the beginning, if you like, of a state, okay, which it's a revolution in that part of the world, okay, because people were really the system was basically totally tribal, okay. Each tribe has its own traditions, has its own leaders, or what they call ru'asa, okay, and the elders among them were usually the leaders dictating on the people what basically needs to be really done. Okay, now the situation is different. Muhammad ﷺ is formulating now, okay, a state. Okay, now there is a new authority. It's not really like each one taking matters by their own hands, but there is a leadership, okay, the beginning of a new structure, okay, to become now, because I'm saying this because that was not, it was not easy for people to understand at the beginning, because they have been living all their lives without any limits. Okay, the same way they see the desert open before them, okay, they can do whatever they want. Okay, they dictate what they now. Okay, there is a new authority, and later in our own history we saw a lot of disturbances. If you analyze them, you may find a very important explanation in that same idea. The idea, okay, who has the authority? Okay, you cannot dictate on me, especially after Muhammad ﷺ died. Okay, a lot of people wanted really to show the mutiny. They want to secede from the central government, if you like, in Medina because of that. Okay, the religious figure is gone. Yes, we can continue to pray, but we don't want to pay zakat. What does that really mean? It's not like, okay, we like this and we don't like that. The idea is that when you are praying between you and your God. But when you are paying the zakat, the government is playing a role, because they are going to collect that money. You see, so the idea of their refusal to pay zakat while they continue to pray, this is what they said. We are going to continue to pray. We are not saying we are not Muslims anymore, but we don't want to pay zakat, because it's still the idea of authority of a state did not sink yet. You see what I mean? So it's very important to understand that culture. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to interpret. Don't interpret these situations 1400 years ago with what you think today. You have to live, if you like, in that environment through reading a lot about the history of that, so that you become, you feel the spirit of that culture. And this is why Ibn Khaldun came up with a very interesting, as a historian, he revolutionized the way we understand and approach history. He was the first to transcend the idea of understanding history just through events. He wanted to understand why these events happened. And unless you understand the culture, and he called it the science of the nature of culture, علم طبائع العمران, the science of understanding the nature of the culture. Unless you understand the culture, it will be you cannot only rely on the narratives. This is what this person said about that. I mean, the chain. Okay, this is part of it. But he was the first to say that in every narrative the lying is inherent in any narrative. Lying. Not he is saying that person is a liar, but we are susceptible to lie, okay, or to say something against the reality, opposite to the reality, however you like it or not. It is inherent, constitutional in the narrative itself. And so he started looking at, we need something else to help us to know if these narratives are right or wrong. This is what exactly happened or not, through understanding the nature of the culture. And for us today to understand, we don't live in that environment anymore. But if a historian wants to understand, he has to live from the narratives understand the culture, and then he will be or she will be able to say, that makes sense, that does not make sense. And I can connect or reconstruct the history or what happened at that time, okay, more accurately. It's very, very, it's not an easy task. Okay, but it may sound as a digression, okay, from what we are discussing, but it is very important because these are the seeds for what we saw later on in our own history. Make sense to you? Okay, so the idea of the difference between the situation in Mecca and the situation in Medina. Okay, it doesn't mean that in Mecca they were accepting what happened to them, but they did not have the means to resist. They resisted in a non-violence way. And always, if you can achieve your objective without resorting to violence, it remains. And we said last time that the trajectory is always towards peace. What happened along that trajectory, okay, like these bumps, where there is a good reason to resort to force, okay, should be very transient. And we have always to keep inside, okay, the vision is really towards the objective is peace and ta'aruf. People to live together, learning about each other, learning from each other in a peaceful conditions, and also with the mutual recognition. What does that mean? That the person besides me is very important for me, regardless of the identity of that individual. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created that person. It means he or she is playing an important role for me. And this is why we always remind people, what do we say at least 17 times every day? In our prayer, Alhamdulillah, Rabb Al-Alameen. So he is not only my Lord, he is the Lord of all worlds, which means I need all the worlds to help me know and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so that I can move towards him on that trajectory. Make sense? Yes.
Even speaking of peace, this is talk about the war, but I have noticed that in these ayah, Allah 3 times said something which means to me a promotion of peace, even during the war. When he says, وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا, but exceed not the limits, then he says, فَإِنْ انْتَهَوْا. If they refrain themselves, then truly God is forgiving, so you can forgive them too. And then the third one...
Don't move, this is very important. Inna Allah ghafurur rahim. Okay, what should I learn from that? Knowing Allah is all forgiving and merciful. What does it mean to me? That I should realize, and this is what is really needed. You see, because how you are going to reconcile, how you can to bring people together, because that is the objective. We said that there was a bump where there was resort to force, and there was probably killing and people harmed and everything. But once the war stops, how you want to reconcile if you do not exercise mercy and forgiveness? And what is that? Give me an incident from the life of Muhammad ﷺ where that was practiced. Free everybody when? During the liberation of Mecca. اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. You are all free. I am not going to treat you the same way you treated me. You kicked me out, I will not kick you out. Even when the original, the people who were kicked out from Mecca, their houses were gone. So they asked Muhammad ﷺ, we want to go back to... He said, don't do that, because we will really bring back all the hostilities back. Don't worry about it. I will take care of that. Forget about them. Okay? Even those who saw the army going in, they say, oh, this is the day of an epic. Malhama. But Muhammad ﷺ, when he heard this, he said, no, this is the day of marhama, day of mercy. These are the important three things that happen. Go, you are all free. This is not a day for hostilities. This is the day for mercy. And even those who lost their houses, don't make any issue out of it, because it will resume the hostilities. I don't want this to happen. This is the day for reconciliation. And this is how you think Muhammad ﷺ was able to unite all Arabia. If you count all the people who were killed in all the battles, they are really minimal. Yes, every life is precious. But your intention is to minimize, even during these bumps, to minimize as possible the number of casualties. Because that is not the intention. The intention is to restore peace and to put people back on that trajectory towards peace and towards ta'aruf.
I think these 4 verses are taken out of context.
No question about it.
Nobody, follows the 191 by 192. And I've been asked this now multiple times.
Yes.
So your religion is the religion of war. And I never actually, because I've never read the Quran like this. Now I can give them these 4 verses.
I told the group that last week. I told the team, the group last week, that after 9/11 I was invited to speak to by a rabbi who used to work at the same hospital, to talk to his group. Okay, here in Highland Park, and because I was trying to intercept what they may ask, so I took with me a copy of Qur'an, okay, just to show them, because they asked the same question, and I was able to show them, okay, read what has been said before it, and after it, don't take it out of context. Because وَقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمْ, kill them everywhere you see them. What are you talking about? You are talking about the field of the battle. Okay, you are not really like to do that every time or on a daily basis. And the verse is saying, do not transgress the limits.
There is one more thing
Please.
I want to share.
Yeah.
In the next ayah, Allah says, فَلَا عُدْوَانَ.
فَلَا عُدْوَانَ.
Then there is to be no deep-seated dislike. It is going further that you cannot keep grievances in your heart. Just clean it out.
Yes. Very good.
I'm sorry.
In the next ayah, Allah says, فَإِنْ انْتَهُوا فَلَا عُدْوَانَ, meaning when you forgive them, a lot of time if I have some grudges or something, I always keep it in my heart. I don't talk to you. I say, okay, I forgive you, but I'm not going to be talking to you anymore. Here Allah says there is to be no deep-seated dislike. Take dislike out of your heart completely. So
in other words, you want to bring them to the fold of the society. Okay. Otherwise, you are refuting your purpose, because as we said, the seeds, you have to take care of the environment. You remember last time what we said? Okay, you have to create an environment where animosity will be very difficult to grow. How are you going to do that if you do not really spread mercy and exercise mercy and forgiveness? Okay, so that the others will feel that this is the environment that I would like to see, but not like to be treated as like a second degree, citizen or so, because sooner or later that would really come back and haunt the community. That's very important. وَاقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ وَأَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَخْرَجُوكُمْ. If they kicked you out, kick them out. So this is a field, okay? So it's really like you are trying, the idea again, you are trying through the act of fighting to stop the war. Don't make it like a istinzaf. What is like to make it dragging? Okay, like you do something, they do something to you. I mean, it will perpetual for long period of time. No, the idea is to be harsh, but the harshness is meant to stop the war. حتى تضع الحرب أوزارها. And Quran is saying, it's very, very, in a very figurative and metaphorical way, Quran is saying, it means like to stop the war, but Quran put it in a very nice way that war is always associated with sins. أوزار. حتى تضع الحرب أوزار. Nothing good comes out of war. So even in that situation, you have to act in a way to stop the war. وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَشَدُّ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. This is the most important thing. What is worse than killing is the fitna. Fitna means oppression that may manifest itself in different ways. In injustice, in the form of obstructing the way for people to see the truth, or forcing them, compulsion, okay, compelling them like to follow what you dictate on them. This is fitna. And Quran is saying, and later on we will see another phrase similar to it, وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَكْبَرُ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. Ashad and akbar. Ashad qualitatively, akbar quantitatively. So Quran from both sides is telling us that fitna is really the only reason to stand up and fight, because they are worse than the killing itself. That is really the strong thing here. Now, yes, please.
In another place, the fitna defined as Tafsir ibn Kathir. There it's referred to Bukhari and Muslim, saying fitna means disbelief. Is that what it is?
Yeah, this meaning forcing somebody to disbelieve. You see, fitna is like to cause disturbance.
Not the kufr.
Not the kufr itself, but pushing people in that direction. There is a compulsion here. You are compelling people to follow. You remember, like in Mecca, how the followers of Muhammad were persecuted. Okay, sometimes they have been forcing to the point that somebody said, under compulsion, he disbelieved. He showed disbelief. Ammar. And Quran came to protect him that if you said that out of compulsion, you are not responsible for it. This is a form of fitna. He was not as strong, for example, as Bilal. While under torture, they will ask him to refuse and reject and deny his belief. He will continue to say, the more they torture him, the more he will cling to his belief, saying, Ahadun Ahad.
So they are negating forced conversions,
yes,
which are happening in a lot of our
yes,
Muslim countries.
no question about it. I mean, it is very clear, but unfortunately, because they can come up with say, oh, this verse has been abrogated, or I mean, there was another verse that will come and like a trumpet or something. This is nonsense, honestly. This is nonsense because first of all, Muhammad ﷺ did not talk about abrogation. This is something that came up later on because of the binary thinking. They see two verses that may appear to them contradictory. They say either this one is the one that we have to take or that. This is the binary thinking. Today we have transcended that binary thinking. And we can see that both can be applied. Because one is overarched by the other but is not negating the one before. You see, so it has to do with the situation. But it's not really like one is negating another. It doesn't make sense. You see, because this is a book of guidance. How come that will tell you do this and then another verse will tell you to do something different? So for them, because again, yes and no, 0 and 1, this is what I mean by binary thinking. That really was behind. So and we are trying like to understand why these things are happening. Because the more you understand, you can bring the remedy. The remedy is really to transcend that level of thinking. The problem today, my dear brothers and sisters, is not in the understanding, but in the level of understanding. The level of thinking itself. People are thinking. Nobody is not, I mean, like the human beings, they are thinking. But at what level they are thinking?
But these people really don't have to go too far. I mean, we can look into the lifestyle and the practices by our Prophet.
Yes.
He never...
which raises immediately that there is really an agenda using religion to make that agenda pass. Right. You see what I mean? And it is very easy. Okay, so the religion becomes under the control. Okay, instead of being the guidance, as we have been saying, and giving the direction, it becomes the tool. Okay, or the mask behind which they push their really agenda and their special interests. And you, as you know, I mean, you can misuse anything. But the worst thing, when it comes to religion, because it's dear to us, and if you want to rally people, I mean, like you can use religion to the maximum, okay? But you need vigilant people to say, no, this is not really true. It's not coherent, because it contradicts other important concepts. Yes, it is not easy. But this is how you can bring the counter narrative, which is lacking today. The point is that the counter narrative is weak. Why weak? Because it is still follow the same logic, the same paradigm. Unless you transcend that paradigm, you are not going to change. That I'm telling you the truth. I'm not here like to sugarcoat it. No, it is very deep, the problem. But unless you go deep in your understanding and constructing a new counter narrative, if I follow the same logic, okay, it's not going to. But you show the anomaly. And you bring you show the anomaly of the current paradigm or the level of thinking. As we were saying, this is binary. Doesn't help us. You have to move into a higher level of thinking. And really the one who put it very beautifully is Einstein. At one time he said, the problem that we are facing, this is what he said. The problem in science, because it's easy to understanding in the physical world, but it will also apply in our really social life. He said the problem that we are facing today is that we are trying to understand the problems at the same level when we created them. I mean, in your own job, how many times you say, I cannot, this is the problem. How can you are asking me to solve my problem in the same way that created the problem? You see, I mean, it happens all the time. This is how the problem was created. You are asking me to follow the same thing to solve it. It doesn't make sense. So what you do? You look for another mechanism. You look for a different approach. And today, the companies are very aware of that. While they are following a certain paradigm, they are thinking about another one. Because they know at one point they will be stuck. It will reach a plateau and it will not respond to new questions.
That's what we call innovation.
And this is how we move forward in our discoveries and innovations. And again, when we are talking like this, when we go back, we cannot remain prisoners to our own history. But the best way to liberate us is by understanding it. It's not by shying away from it or throwing it away and say, no, I want to start like anew. It's not really also right. No. By the best way to liberate myself from the past is by understanding it very well. And then I know where is the anomaly and how I can transcend it. Make sense? So there are so many examples. I told you about those who, the three people who won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry this year, just a few months ago. And I urge you to read what was their contribution. You know what was the contribution? And the microscopy. Now, using light microscopy, with their new discovery, they were able to add to it so that you can see more details. We all know from light microscopy you can see to a certain limit and then you cannot do anything more. You know why? Because somebody in 1873 put a rule. He called it after his name, Abbe, A-B-B-E, refraction rule. And one of the people who won the prize, he said, that was the obstacle. That was the obstacle. After 141 years, somebody came and said, that is the problem. Because someone put a rule that you cannot transcend. He said, that is the rule. I want to, not to break it, I want to transcend it. I don't want, it's like becoming an obstacle for innovation. You see, so what did he do? He liberated himself. But if I want to know about that person and his colleagues are the best to understand that rule. They understood fully that rule. Otherwise they could not liberate themselves from it. This is why I am saying the same thing in social life. Okay? If we want to transcend our past, okay, and we want to liberate ourselves from the prison of the past, I need to understand it very well. We need a new present that will allow us to have the keys for our past. Once I know my past, I will gain my tomorrow. my future.
One of the things about
I want, it's clear,
Yes.
we need a new present. A new present, which means I need new tools, new skills, new sciences that will help me to understand the past very well. Once I understand it, I can make my future. So the key is really to have a different present.
But I think in our studies, when we looked at history, we looking at all the Islamic history, it looks like it stops a certain way, point. We don't talk about what happened after that. Like last 1,000 years or 500 years, those people not even aware of what happened in Islamic history.
Yep.
One of the articles that Najee forwarded on Facebook about how Saudi Arabia, how they came to power, how they were formed, how this country was created, and how they're affecting the entire world. We don't understand that.
Yeah.
We limit ourselves to like whatever after maybe another 100 years after Prophet Muhammad's death.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yes.
it seems like that's where this history stops.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I think.
Even these 100 years that we were talking about little bit or referring to them, they are really very critical.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we still approach it. We want to find something that will give us good feeling.
Yeah.
And something that doesn't give us a good feeling, we rejected it. Instead of looking objectively at all these things and start from the important premise that we are all human beings. However, you are talking about Sahaba or any ordinary person, okay? They are all humans and we are all subject to error and to mistake. Unless we go back to that very important premise. And Imam Ali radiallahu anhu, one time he was asked, how come this person who is great and very well known making a mistake? And he said a very beautiful, he put honestly to humanity, he put really a very important rule. And he said, لا يعرف الحق بالرجال. Do not measure the truth by the people. Know the truth. اعرف الحق. Know the truth. تعرف أهله. You know who is following the truth. You see, it's very powerful. لا يعرف الحق بالرجال. اعرف الحق. تعرف أهله. Even if it applies to me. Okay, don't say that Ali is the truth. No.
You don't own the truth.
Nobody owns the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the truth. And believe me, all the conflicts start there. Because everyone becomes closed into what they believe that it is the truth. The truth. And who will suffer? The people, you and me. When we have two rivalries, okay? Believe me, they don't suffer. The people between them suffer. And this is where we have to increase the knowledge or educate the masses.
Well, I have a couple of things. So
Please.
One, I just wanted to say what you said about Einstein. As much as he valued and used knowledge, he did say imagination is better than knowledge because you can go higher with that. So like you were saying, to get to the next step.
You said imagination. Yeah. You see, because any innovation starts with imagination. You see what I mean? So it's very important, okay? And Marshall Hudson, since you mentioned this, very important. Marshall Hudson was at University of Chicago, one of the brightest scholars, okay, and in Islamic studies. He said about himself, I am a devoted Christian. But he wrote the best book about Islam, called The Ventures of Islam. 3 big volumes. And I will urge any one of you really to, at least to have it in your library as a reference. It's very, very interesting really, 3 volumes, okay? But when he really analyzed, after all this analysis, after all this knowledge about the Islamic experience, or he likes to call it Islamicate, because he believed, and he is true, that not only Muslims contributed to that civilization, but so many people from different faith and cultures contributed to that civilization. And he said, when the West learned from the East did not only acted as just a conduit of knowledge. It's not just transfer of knowledge. This transfer of knowledge doesn't make you an innovator, doesn't make you a discoverer, okay? You will become a copy of what is being said or done before you. But he said there were 3 things that contributed to the rise of the West in sciences and discoveries, okay? They have this knowledge, but there were 3 important factors that helped them to continue the journey. Critical thinking, and I want you to know them. Imagination and symbolism. So, it's very important. Otherwise, you cannot move forward.
So this concept of what you're talking about, the East and the West, has been on my mind because it seems to me as a convert, when I talk to people to try to understand what is going on, because there's kind of an identity crisis for people like me to say this is what I believe, and then I'm seeing what's happening, and how do you talk to people to understand this? But I also see what you were saying, how things stopped at a certain level. Everything I'm reading about Islam, to learn about Islam, is nothing new or fresh. It almost like it stopped because of oppression. Like if you say anything outside of this realm, we're going to kill you, you know?
Yes.
And so people just stop out of fear. So now you come to American Muslims who have the freedom and the ability to do that, and for some reason they're not finding the courage to do that. But if you begin at the grassroots with the Americans, because coming from an experience of parish nursing, which is a type of nursing for spiritual care, Islam not even on the radar for the last 10 years. Interfaith things never included Islam. No one knew anything about it. So now to have this understanding coming from this on the news, the more that you teach the grassroots what the truth is, you stop that East versus West that they want, that these self-proclaimed Islam people want, to convince their masses that don't know any better that the West is evil, and from the West thinks that they're evil. So you have to begin to break that down when you see this. Ashraf and I were watching Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
And they had something about the Gaza Strip and reaching people through food.
Yeah, I thought
And
that was
and he went to Iran last night.
Yeah.
And he was saying, everywhere I went, everybody was nice.
Yeah.
Everybody was friendly.
Good food.
Like, this is like shocking, you know? So that was really very interesting to begin to break down those borders in unusual ways.
And this is what really I meant by the counter narrative, because the current narrative is always only about a clash. You see, clash of civilization. Call it whatever you want. Clash of civilization, clash of between governments. I mean, East and the West, and all these things. Believe me, nonsense. Honestly, okay. Or at least we have to ask ourselves how we can create an environment that will prevent conflict. Even little steps like that. Okay, people start changing. Yeah, it is not true. Yeah, people start really starting to change their thinking. So this counter narrative, my point is that it also needs to be strong enough. It's not enough to show the anomaly of that paradigm that talks about conflict, but how you can present a very strong, coherent counter-narrative which really Its vision is peace and ta'aruf, how to get to know each other, learn together, learn about each other, learning from each other.
And I think what you said about it having nothing to do with religion, it's
No.
their agenda. And that's what's
Yes.
not recognized, I think,
Yes,
by the...
yes. It's like the
I think
picture.
it is recognized because there is a group of population who understand that these so-called, this group, they're using Islam as a pretext and ploy to achieve and gain their own selfish agenda. But there's nothing Islamic about it, And that's what we need to refute.
Yes.
And poke fingers in their eyes that, hey, call yourself anything, I don't care, but don't say that Islamic.
That's right.
You know?
That's the biggest
You
piece
know?
that's finally starting to shift in the media, that they're starting to use different words, words are huge. To say that this Islamic group, well, right away, it's just, what? It's not Islamic. So now it's like self-proclaimed Islamic, only on like the public broadcasting stations.
Yeah, well, and the media is also, I fault them because they are equally to blame because they're using this, calling them Islamic State. Don't do that. Don't give any,
Don't give them
But
the
unfortunately,
But they don't have a counter narrative, that's the problem.
Yeah, but the counter narrative we adopted is also it's not correct. The whole universe going against just killing them. This also is not right.
Right. We're not understanding why
Yeah,
they
we're
became...
just going bombing on them. I don't think that would be a good solution either.
So it's that
So
one.
What do you
Find
call
something.
them? I mean, what do you call them? You know what I mean? Well, if you call the news and say we've got to stop using that term, what do you substitute it with so that they know how to identify that?
Again, I mean, it's all this. It's not really one thing. It is a very complex and complicated situation. But the idea is really how, and I am not really only focusing on only that. And because today we have this problem, tomorrow we'll have another problem. Okay, unless you really strengthen ourselves from inside. Remember what we said, okay, you strengthen yourself from inside by vaccination and from outside by sanitation. Okay, clean environment, strong from the inside also. So we need a counter narrative that would really work as a vaccine. Okay, that will strengthen us from inside so these things will not affect us. And at the same time, create a clean environment where these pathogens will not survive, okay? They will not have the right environment to flourish. And so that, again, what really that I mean by this strong counter-narrative, okay? And I think, as we said, unless we start showing people that the problem is in the level of thinking. It's not what they are following and not following. The way they approach things. That is really deeper than saying, oh, this action is right or that action is wrong. Yes, I mean, you can say that, but it will not solve the problem. You have to go to the root cause. Okay, the root cause in the level of thinking. The approach itself. Okay, what does it really mean to go and destroy all these really like old ruins? They have been there. But they have been there in the Islamic experience for over 1400 years and nobody touched them. You understand now, you are telling us that you know about Islam more than anybody else? I mean, this is nonsense.
Somebody said that they are doing this because Prophet Muhammad went and broke all the idols in Kaaba, and so they are following his footsteps. And I didn't know how to.
I mean,
No, I think they're doing because we are bombing it, we are trying to kill them, so they just started.
So it's their retaliation.
They can do it.
yeah, I mean, again, but this is the point. Yeah, but they are using, as we were saying, Islam as a pretext, okay, and again, leaning on it instead to be enlightened by it. You see, this is the difference between leaning on the religion, any religion, to use it as a pretext, or you coming to the religion to be enlightened, because religion, by definition, is a system for that provides you and informs the meaning of your action, that gives you direction. Once it really loses that function, it's not anymore religion or whatever. If you call it Islam or Christianity or any or communism or anything, it doesn't matter. Okay, once it loses really, or that system loses its main function, which is really to give guidance, to inform. So they are creating their own religion, in a sense. Whether they call it, that doesn't make any sense, whatever you call it. Okay? But if that type of thinking is informing their actions and the direction of their actions, okay, then we are dealing with a really very bad system. Okay? Because that system will encourage conflict and it will not encourage peace. And we are saying that the trajectory is towards peace. Inna Allah farada salam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it really an obligation. Peace is an obligation, not war. So again, the war is just a bump on the road. Okay? Now, in terms of creating the environment to decrease the chances for conflict, even before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people they used to look at the Al-Masjid Al-Haram, where Mecca and its surrounding, that this place should always be a sanctuary. No fighting in that place. So whoever wants to be safe will come to that place. Keep that place safe and secure. Okay? And Qur'an acknowledged that and continued, accepted that because it is good. Anything that is good, Qur'an in fact supported it and enforced it. Okay? So they created for themselves also this idea of the sanctuary months, the 4 months of the year. Even if there is like two people fighting, they should stop during these 4 months, which is Rajab and Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah and Muharram. Okay, the 4 months, okay, so at least will help the people, because even if they were fighting and then that month started, they will stop. There will be time to negotiate, okay, to talk it out, and that may be a reason or a situation that will lead to peace rather than continuing the war in a perpetual way. However, it is the time or space or place, however these months, sanctuary months, or the sanctuary place, which is Mecca and its surrounding, Kaaba and its surrounding, okay, people may also exploit it. They may kill during that month, and knowing that others may not come and resist. So Quran is saying, no, I mean, this month is haram, and this place is haram, but killing during that month or on that place is really worse than considering the sanctity of that month or that place. So the human life remains above, so need to be protected. So this is why وَلَا تَقْتُلُوهُمْ عِنْدَ الْمَسْجِدِ الْحَرَامِ. Don't kill in the vicinity of the sacred house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, حَتَّى يُقَاتِلُوكُمْ فِي. Only if they fought you in that place. If they did that, fight back. كَذَلِكَ جَزَاءُ الْكَافِرِينَ. So you see, I mean that this is their, this is really the just retribution for them. It's really like to fight them back. Okay? So don't allow them to take advantage, because the human life and the fitna is worse than all these things. You see, I mean, because later on we will see يسألونك عن الشهر الحرام قتال فيه. They will ask Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, can we fight during during the month, these sanctuary months? Okay. Quran said, قل قتال فيه كبير. This is a big sin to fight, okay, or to use hostilities or violence during that month. However, Quran immediately say that if that is going to be exploited by the enemy, and so وَصَدٌّ عَنْ سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَكُفْرٌ بِهِ وَإِخْرَاجُ أَهْلِهِ مِنْهُ أَكْبَرُ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. You see, the fighting is bad, kabir. But what was worse than that, if they are start really killing you there or kicking you out, okay, or they used their force to prevent people from seeing the truth or listening to the new message, then the Quran is saying, وَالْفِتْنَةُ أَكْبَرُ مِنَ الْقَتْلِ. Here it said, أَشَدُّ, as we said, qualitatively and quantitatively. So in other words, to prevent fitna is really became the reason for any form really of hostility. However, it is during the sanctuary months or outside it. Okay, the idea is don't allow the enemy to take advantage of that space, which is the sacred house of Allah, Al-Masjid Al-Haram, or the sanctuary months. Okay, but if they respect them, we will respect them even more. These times and that place. فَإِنْ انْتَهَوْا, as Yusuf said, فَإِنْ انْتَهَوْا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. If they stop their hostilities, you stop. Not only that, but you treat them with forgiveness and mercy. Because Allah is merciful and also forgiving. So we need to realize His attributes and His names in our own life. And this is really when they are needed. We need to exercise that at every time. But now it is very critical to exercise mercy and forgiveness. Otherwise, the seeds for hostilities will not go away. Again, that is the environment. The environment of mercy, the environment of forgiveness will prevent the clash. You see where the sanitation is? If you create an environment of forgiveness, an environment of mercy, that is capable of preventing the clash. But who will be mostly responsible to exercise these important high values? The one who believes in them. Not only believe in them, believe in the one who has them in the absolute. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Otherwise, what does it really mean to believe in Allah? If I don't believe in His attributes and names, that I have to realize them in my own life. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةً. You remember what we said? This is the crux now. Yeah, and it really is like in the middle of that passage. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا. The only reason for fighting back is to prevent fitna, to prevent oppression, to prevent compulsion. That is the main, to prevent injustice. وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ. I will repeat what we said last time. وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ is not as it is translated. Yeah, what do we say? The easiest way. What do we say in Surah Al-Fatiha? Maliki Yawm al-Din. What does it really mean? Yawm al-Din. The day of the judgment. So deen means judgment. When it says here, وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ, who will have the judgment? Allah. If I have the judgment, I may enforce it. Enforce my belief on others. That will become compulsion. This verse is saying, do not, when you are fighting back against fitna, do not do the same thing yourself and start judging people. No, the judgment belongs only to Allah. So وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ, that judgment only belongs to Allah. And unfortunately, most, if not all, read the translation that you have.
It's, and fight them on until there is no more tumult or oppression.
Okay.
And there prevail justice and faith in Allah.
I mean, you see, I mean, as if you are enforcing it on the... No. Yeah, here it's saying, deen here is like Maliki Yawm al-Din. You see, if you go from inside Qur'an, you will find the answer. You will find the interpretation. Maliki Yawm al-Din, that we say at least 17 times every day in our prayer. Okay, it means that Allah, He is in control of the day of judgment. So وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ, when you are protecting yourself and others against fitna, against tumult and oppression, do not do it yourself, because you do not judge. Allah is the judge. Judgment only belongs to Allah. And in another verse, it says, وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ كُلُّهُ, all of it, all judgment belongs to Allah. Because sometimes we may say, oh, Allah has the judgment and I may have some of that. No, Quran is saying all judgment belongs to Him. Your own, as a prophet, and we are followers of the prophets. He said, عَلَيْكَ الْبَلَاغُ وَعَلَيْنَا الْحِسَابُ. Your job is to relay the message. Our job is to judge. Now we have reversed it. Now we have reversed it. We speak like as if we are speaking on the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You see what I mean? On behalf. And we want to judge. Taking the job or the task, okay, or the authority of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is very important. I want you to remember that verse, but to translate it based on the understanding of Surah Al-Fatiha. وَقَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةً وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ, or وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ كُلُّهُ لِلَّهِ. Twice it was mentioned. But the other one leaves no doubt. No room. كُلُّهُ. The judgment, all of it belongs to Allah. Don't judge. Because the moment you judge, you may enforce. You may compel. No. You don't refute the purpose. You prevent oppression and then you act as an oppressor. You cannot have it both ways. Make sense? وَيَكُونَ الدِّينُ لِلَّهِ فَإِنِ انْتَهَوْا فَلَا عُدْوَانَ إِلَّا عَلَى الظَّالِمِينَ. If they stop the hostilities, you stop. If they continue their injustice, yes, you fight back to stop the oppression. You see, because Qur'an is saying later on, الشهر الحرام بالشهر الحرام والحرمات قصاص. What is more important than the sanctuary place or the sanctuary months okay, and everything that has its sanctity, okay, is the just retribution. Qisas, remember when we saw that in previous, okay? وَلَكُمْ فِي الْقِصَاصِ حَيَاتٌ يَا أُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. When you apply justice, you are bringing life. Okay? And so Qur'an is saying what should be above the sanctuary months or sanctuary place or anything that has its own sanctity is a just retribution. That should be the objective. And so that would really become the judge if my action is really in the way of Allah or not. Because Allah is justice, Al-Adl. One of His names is Al-Adl. So if I am establishing Adl, I am closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمَنْ اعْتَدَى عَلَيْكُمْ فَاعْتَدُوا عَلَيْهِ. How come? Quran is saying فَاعْتَدُوا. And earlier he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. No, you fight back to stop the hostilities. In Arabic we call it mushakala. You use the same verb just to show that, but it's in a figurative way. For example, Quran said, إن المنافقين يخادعون الله وهو خادعهم. The hypocrites always try to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the verse said, وَاللَّهُ خَادِعُهُمْ. Allah deceives, but He using the same verb to uncover their deceit. So when the Quran is saying to the believers, fight back, not to do it like them, your objective is to stop the hostilities, to stop the transgression, to stop the aggression. You see, I mean, if they are attacking you, you attack back. If they are assaulting you, you assault to stop the assault, to stop the war, not to perpetuate the war. And this is why Quran immediately brings a very important concept that started from the beginning of the surah, which is taqwa. So what are you protecting? Taqwa is protection. Protecting what? Protecting yourself from the assault of the enemy, but also protecting yourself from acting like the enemy. Otherwise, what is the difference? What is the message that you are bringing to them? That you are acting like them? One time, you know about Umar al-Mukhtar. He was like leading a revolution in Libya against the Italians, okay, who were like occupying the country. You know, Italy, across the Mediterranean, okay, so he was leading. So at one point, some of his followers came to him and say, we want to kill the prisoners of war, the Italian prisoners of war. He said, no, why you want to do that? They said, because they are killing our prisoners. He said, they are not our role model. His answer to his followers, they are not our role model. Our role model is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, who actualized the revelation in his actions. And the prisoners of war are not killed and not enslaved. Prisoners of war, either you leave them, free them for free, or you ransom them, like exchange, or ask them to do something in return. But please, فَإِمَّا مَنًّا بَعْدُ وَإِمَّا فِدَاءً. Mannan ba'du, to free them. Go. As Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did with the people in Mecca. He could have taken them all prisoners, but what is the aim? He said, go. I don't want prisoners. And in the previous battles, he ransomed them. And what was the ransom? Do you remember? To teach how to write and read. Some of the prisoners were literate. And Muhammad ﷺ was facing a big problem, illiteracy. So he used that tool, okay? Oh, you know how to write and read? If you teach 10 of my people how to write and read, you will be free. Huge difference. You see? Because Muhammad ﷺ was living the challenge. The challenge that he has a book that he knows that is the last book to humanity and has to be preserved in writing. So he would need people to know how to write and read. So that was one of the... And by the way, I mean, you talked about our history. Even the seerah itself. How many people knew how many wells Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did he dig in Medina? Did we teach that to our kids here? Did we teach them that Medina was made up of like subdivisions? And in every subdivision there was a mosque. We only knew about the mosque of the Prophet, Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, which was the major one. Is that right? But how many knew that there were small mosques? What was the mission of these small mosques? To teach people how to write and read. Because Muhammad ﷺ, this is how he responded to the challenge. Make sense? Okay, this is what we need to uncover in studying our own history. And the history of the world, for that matter. Otherwise, we are not going to learn the lessons and the morals in order to move forward. So again, I will emphasize that we need a new present that will allow us to understand better our past, so that we can liberate ourselves from it in order to move forward. Yes?
Just one thing, it comes always when there are like fights or wars, and you know how you think about your end.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is talking in 191 about, you know, كذلك جزاء الكافرين. And this is the main thing that makes people that believe that they are fighting for the cause of Islam, you know, kill people or do whatever you want, because they think they are on the lower, like the moral level is much lower. So these are not dealt with, they are dealt with as kafirin. So they worthy of being killed, maimed, destroyed, based on that kind of how you perceive them. So is there a clarity better than how Islam deals with the enemy, yes, versus being the lower, yeah, like?
And this is really very, I'm happy that you bring that up, because, and we have been emphasizing this in really, in particular last week, that our approach to Qur'an needs to really change. And the first step is to look at every verse in Qur'an as a unit of meaning. If I look at this phrase at the end and as if I am taking it out of context, this is not the verse. The verse starts وَاقْتُلُوهُمْ حَيْثُ ثَقِفْتُمُوهُمْ وَأَخْرِجُوهُم. You see, this is how they are acting. These kafirin are acting like this. They deserve that treatment. But not because they are like they chose for themselves kufr as their system. We are going to fight them. But on the contrary, the Quran from the beginning told them, لَكُمْ دِينُكُمْ وَلِيَ دِينِ. acknowledge them and acknowledge that they have their own religion. But when you are acting in this way, causing with hostilities to the others and causing oppression and fitna and all these things, this is the reason. And really, even later on, the scholars were asked the same, like Ibn Taymiyyah, who is very well known to be like really very, among the scholars, to be very extreme. But in that particular matter, his approach was very good. He wrote a treatise, Risala, about trying to answer that question. Are we fighting the kafirin for their kufr, or we are fighting them for their transgression? And he ended up, he brought all the supporting evidence to show the conclusion is that you don't fight the people because of what they believe. You fight them if their actions are really causing oppression. I'll give you another example. Remember after the death of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and came Abu Bakr, and then Umar, and then Uthman, and then Ali. And there was a conflict between Ali and Muawiyah, about who has the authority or who is supposed to be the Khalifa, the successor. After the death and the murder of Uthman, Ali Radwanullah. So after the battle between Muawiyah and Ali, there was a mutiny in the army of Ali. We call Khawarij, which means that they don't want to follow him anymore. He did not do anything to them. If this is your opinion, go for it. But do not cause any oppression. He fought them only because they caused tumult and disturbance and wherever they were, and he basically fought them harshly. Not because they were against his opinion or they took a path different from his, but because of their transgression, their injustices. And he will say, go wherever you want in the whole empire. And it was huge in the times of Ali. The empire became huge. But he said, go wherever you want, but do not inflict injustice. If you do that, I will fight you. Make sense? But this is good because people may look at that phrase and think that we have to fight everybody who denies or rejects the truth or covers up the truth. No, that is not acceptable. Fitna is the one. If they are exercising fitna, oppression, Qur'an is saying, قَاتِلُوهُمْ حَتَّى لَا تَكُونَ فِتْنَةً. If you have also the means to do that. Yes?
This brings me to what happened in Pakistan to these young girls, and including Malala, who were forbidden to go to school. And I'm trying to sort of think why these people did all this, and they are saying that it's because education will make their girls be more modern and start doing things which they are westernized, and that will make them not behave like they want them to be. Now, in their mind, they think that this is kufr to be teaching them all these, the new knowledge and all that, and so that's their interpretation of and so they are doing this to protect their children. But in our minds, this is, oppression, or this is wrong.
Yeah.
How do you sort
of,
like it's the interpretation of one group versus another group?
Again, as simple as like if you came here driving, is that right? Okay. We all came here driving our own cars. But we know that several accidents happen over the last 24 hours, probably the last few minutes. Is that right? Does that mean that I have to stop? See, I mean, anything can go wrong. Okay? Instead of saying, okay, how I can provide these girls with the right knowledge so that they will realize their own personalities without being transformed into like westernized quote unquote type of, I mean, or to, yeah, like to follow things that is not acceptable in our own culture or in our own really like understanding of our own religion, that we like it to shape our life. Okay, so these things can happen, but the it's like when people, you remember why we always said that if we go deeper, they do not differentiate between the action and the direction of the action. Do you see what I mean? Don't blame the action. Blame the direction of the action. You see what I mean? Like music. You hear it all the time. People, music is haram in Islam. What are you talking about? Tell me, how are you using music? I will tell you if it is okay or not. I remember when we were young, people would say, watching TV is haram. What? TV has nothing to, it's a neutral thing. But the action is different from the direction. The same thing in education. You can use education to go in, God forbids, in the wrong direction, or you can go in the right direction. But to say, I don't want to provide education to girls, just, what about boys? Boys are better in that sense. You see what I mean? Qur'an did not say that. Qur'an is saying, and this is very true, Qur'an is saying, أَوَمَنْ يُنَشَّأُ فِي الْحِلْيَةِ وَهُوَ فِي الْخِصَامِ غَيْرُ مُبِينٍ. Qur'an is saying that the passage was talking about females, the issue of females, to the point that some of them were basically buried alive in that culture where they were afraid of because of honor, because of so many things, sometimes even for economic reasons. Okay? So what do you expect women to be viewed in the society? Strong or weak? Weak and weakened. Is that right? Quran is saying no. You raised them to be weak. They are not weak by their own nature. You raised them. Yunasha'u. You remember when you talked about the environment. That is the environment that made them weak. And Quran is very beautiful. It did not say وَهِيَ فِي الْخِصَامِ. It said وَهُوَ, which means if you raise your boy or girl or boy, in an environment without a challenge, they will not stand up to any simple dispute. They will be weak because you raised them to be weak. And this applies to both genders. This is the best argument to these people. Why are you allowing your sons to be educated? So you are creating that environment to differentiate between a boy and a girl. Quran does not.
I had gone to a program about Sharia to try to understand that better, because I come with a lot of preconception, this is an evil thing. And what the presenter was saying was that it was really always a very good thing, but through generations of patriarchal thinking, it became twisted in some countries. So to get back to what it should be, what it really is different. This sounds like the same thing.
Same thing.
I mean, it's obviously a control issue.
Patriarchy, the way women are viewed, I have said it 100 times, that this is the crux of the problem. Unless we change the view. Yesterday I was really reciting the verses about Maryam alayha salam in Surah Al-Imran. the name of her family. This is how the surah is entitled. But the beautiful thing, Quran when Quran talks to us or narrate to us the experiences of men and women of that caliber, because the caliber of Maryam is like the caliber of the prophets. No question about it. Because the angels came and talked to her. It doesn't happen to an ordinary person. Okay? In that passage, Quran said about her mother when she was vowing, she would like to see her newborn to be an active person, because they were realizing that there is an issue, there is a problem. They need a solution. But you cannot bring a person like that by chance or leave it to the chance. No, Quran said فَتَقَبَّلَهَا رَبُّهَا بِقَبُولٍ حَسَنٍ وَأَنْبَتَهَا نَبَاتًا حَسَنًا. You know anbata? Nabat, what is the nabat?
Vegetation.
Plant. So she was raised the same way you take care of your own plant. In order for Maryam to become Maryam. It's not like, she was chosen from the street and to be Maryam that we know and to carry Isa alayhi salam without a husband. That she was in a very high level to be chosen for that career, if you like, or that mission. You see what I mean? So the same way when Quran tells us about how Musa was chosen, or how Joseph was chosen to be a messenger or a prophet, Quran said وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي الْمُحْسِنِينَ. This is how we pay back to those who do good things in a perpetual way. Muhsin. Anything that reach them, they will bring it up to the next level that is better and higher. So that the prophecy that these high positions are not given haphazardly. They are given for people who have worked hard to reach. I use the example when you get something, but you have put a good grant. You put a good proposal. Is that right? You worked on it very hard and you got a grant for it. They will not go and give a grant to anybody from the outside. Say, we have this program. I will give you $1 million. Do it. No, they will see who is the best to be given that grant. And the same thing for prophecy. Allah makes the selection, but the selection is not haphazard. Show me who is giving me the right of proposal. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will choose the best. And you can see it as you read. This is what I want you, how to read. Not what you read. And where you read. How to read. I am learning mostly how I read. What you read, it's up to you. You can read whatever you want. Is that right? But how we read. And the most important thing, how we read Quran. And this is what we are trying to do together. To learn how to read. Environment. Create the environment for our daughters to realize themselves within religion, within Quran. Otherwise they will seek it outside. Or you bring somebody who is weak. You see the two fires. Either we are given them the choice to be weak or to seek the realization of their personalities outside Islam. No, there is a third path. To understand and to provide a good understanding of Quran, then they see it. then they grow within it. أنبتها نباتا حسنا.
Like Maryam.
Like Maryam alayhi salam. This is what we want to learn. Otherwise, what is the moral? Oh, that we have a good lady and so what? That lady becomes a model. A role model for us. And at a time when we do not have good models for our daughters. We have to bring Maryam back to the age.
I'd like to make a comment, if I may.
Please.
The sister here, alluded to the perceived animosity towards the West. So we see this so many times in the press and all that. But think about it for a second. When they say West, I mean, essentially this is America. Okay?
Europe and the United States.
It's really not the religion, it's economic. If, let's say, the table was turned and the USA wasn't the superpower, it was like one of the Latin American countries, it didn't have the economic and military influence and all that. And let's say China became the superpower. The same people would no longer say East versus West. They would say, Middle East versus China. Nothing to do with Islam then.
Yes.
So I think that's a natural human tendency. The haves, the fights, or the jealousy between the haves and the have-nots.
And in a way, yes. I mean, no question about it that, even within the West, okay, we know that, there is this imbalance that will really becomes, or we need really to make sure that this will not become the seed for any disturbance in the society. The best way is to exercise taqwa, which is a protection, because we have seen it. When there is this imbalance, it will definitely become a reason for clash, okay, or a reason for disturbance, or really fitna. Honestly, fitna is a very loaded term, okay, because anything that causes disturbance in the society, our job is how to minimize it or really protect ourselves and people around us from. Let me just because the next passage is talking about another really topic. Just to finish with the last verse of the current really passage. وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ. So, because even when you are trying to protect yourself, it's not going. You need the means, okay? So you need like the tools for that. You need people to pay, okay? وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Otherwise, you will be bringing the destruction by your own hands. So you have to put your resources together in order really like to protect yourself and others from the fitna that we have been talking about. وَأَحْسِنُوا. So anything that comes to reach you or you have achieved yourself, don't stay at that level. Add goodness to it. وَأَحْسِنُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. So there is nothing that should stay static, but always to bring it really to the next better and higher level. And this is because Allah said أَحْسَنَ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلَقَهُ. So we have to replicate or realize what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about himself. He brings things or adds all the time goodness to things. So we are supposed also to do that.
Can I do something about
Please.
that we have the animosity against the Western because they have been oppressed for hundreds of years. China, the Balis, the Tibetans, they don't like China. They are
Because of the oppression, yes.
We hate America because now they're supporting the oppression. Like Russia and the state of the Middle East.
Yeah. And we have said that oppression can take sometimes an economic, okay, shape or form. Okay, it's not all the time in a military form. Okay, so we, I mean, it's not us here really talking about this. At least I have seen 3 or 4 really books talking recently, like within the last couple of years, talking about the same topic but from different perspectives. But the bottom line is the same, that if we continue to see the imbalance, it's not really the fact that in every society there will be people making money more than others. Okay, but the problem is not that there are people who are making money more than others. The problem is the gap, which means the imbalance. The imbalance is the problem.
I mean, you can see that imbalance even police arresting the people.
I'm sorry?
Police arresting the people. You saw recently in the newspaper about shooting and shit.
Yeah. So it can take any form or shape. This imbalance can really affect everything, from the level of trust between the members of the community to how, let us say, prisoners are treated in the prisons. Are we happy with the way? I mean, I am not happy with the prisoners, but I am not happy with the way you are treating or rehabilitating these prisoners. Or, you see what I mean? So every healthcare will be affected. Is that right? So we know it firsthand. Okay, why we have homeless people in a country with all these resources, for example. So all these issues become and these investigators looked at all these parameters, and they show how imbalance affected every one of them.
But one of the things I was saying, that ignoring the problem does not, I think that's one of the, maybe the context behind that is that ignoring the problem, not thinking that you don't need to do anything is going to go away. It doesn't happen. You need to work. You need to use your resources and help out to make sure you eliminate the.
You remember the verse that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, or 2 sessions away, that Qur'an is saying, don't come to houses from the back, but come from the front. Which means what? This is a very figurative thing. This is a metaphor, that you need to approach the problem in the proper way. If you approach it in the wrong way, you will not solve it. Let alone if you ignore it. Then it means that you are trying to go around. We say it even around the bush. Is that right? Or, don't really come from the back. Let us come from the front. Okay, so meaning that we need the approach is the problem, I would say.
Can you define tahluka?
Tahluka, destruction. Halak. Destruction.
So if you do it the way Allah wants you to do it, and you don't do it their way, وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تَلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُم. So by your own, by your own hands, you are destroying yourself. So in other words, this is the autonomy given to us. Wa alaikum salam. The autonomy given that you are responsible to solve your own problems. And if you do not take the matter seriously, by your own hands you will be destroying yourself, not from the outside. Most of the civilizations really were destroyed from within before they were really attacked from the outside. They became weak themselves before they are taken by an outside really like opponent or rival or enemy. One more thing I want to just share. I was always thinking about why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran using 2 attributes at the same time. Ghafur and Rahim. He could have said Rahim without Ghafur. Same thing, Rahman and Rahim. Wherever it is used, if I thought about this a lot, and the way they are put, Ghafur is first, Rahim is the last. Rahman is first, Rahim is last. And same way other attributes. We cannot be Rahim if we want to copy till we know what is Afwa. We cannot be Rahim unless we know the attributes of Rahman to give an abundance, then I could be the right Rahim. I mean, that's what something I was thinking about.
Very good, very good. Let us take it to the next level, okay? Because really, there are verses, at least one verse where you see Al-Ghafur Ar-Rahim. وَهُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. And we have seen also Rahim Ghafur. Okay. So in other words, these are complex names. Okay. It's not like one attribute or one name, but two names. Okay. Which means should really raise the question for us: what is needed first? You see, because sometimes you need the forgiveness first in order to bring the people together. And mercy, because mercy, remember, rahmah from rahim, the womb of the mother, where you are, the mother will give everything to the fetus without anything in return. Did you ask your kids when they were inside you to give you anything back? You were giving them 100%. Nothing, you were not getting anything from it. So this is how we have to visualize rahmah. To bring people together without even asking anything in return. Just to unite them. Sometimes you need the unity first. You see, this is where these names help us. If you go back to the context where these verses use one name before the other, it tells you from the context what was needed first. So you know your strategy. But unfortunately we say it Ghafur Rahim or Rahim Ghafur, but we don't really ask like what is needed from me as a human being, how that will apply to me. So I think this question is very good to see that unless we understand the context, we are not able to answer a question like that. This is why I always emphasize looking at every verse as a unit of meaning, looking at the verse within the construct of the surah, the chapter, and then everything within the whole Qur'an. If we do not have that structure, as if I am telling a medical student to learn about medicine without anatomy. Can we do that? So you need to understand the anatomy first of Qur'an, the structure itself. Otherwise I cannot understand its function. They go hand in hand. Anatomy and physiology, is that right? Think about it this way. Okay, the structure and the function. Jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you very much.